Washington correspondent. Good morning, Karen Travers.
Good morning.
All right, first let's start with this tax deal. Donald Trump is making claims and quoting numbers, but nobody's seen the tax plan.
Well, there isn't a tax plan yet. You know, there's tax principles. There is a tax reform wish list. There's what the White House wants to see in legislation, but there is no legislation just yet because the White House is making Congress do that, and they're working on it. They're chugging along. The president has set a very tight timeline of this getting done by the end of the year. But there hasn't been what I would say of, a monumental breakthrough that you could say, well, in a week we'll have legislation. There's a lot of opposition from various factions right now to some elements of this. It's a very complicated issue. And this is one of the reasons why the White House put out that bullet point list in the spring, but was hesitant to do numbers because once you put numbers out there, everybody can hack away at them.
You mentioned opposition. Forget the Democrats. It seems like he's got quite a number of issues within his own party.
Yeah, you've got Republicans who, just as a baseline, don't want to see any tax reform plan that would impact the deficits, add to the deficits. You've got some lawmakers in some high tax states who are worried about the deductions, the state and local deductions that could be taken away, saying, that this would really impact their constituents and people could be taxed twice. So that's a core group of some Republicans, especially from New Jersey, New York, California, blue states who are pushing back on some elements of this.
Yeah. Let's talk about everything else that's going on, Karen Travers, because it seems like Ben Sass, conservative Tea Partier, darling for a long time, is now coming out against Donald Trump. You've got the Corker controversy. What is going on in Washington?
Ben Sass likes to tweet. That's one thing. And he's very good at social media. What's going on in Washington is the White House seems to be juggling multiple feuds, but they say nothing to see here. Everything is fine. The president gets along with his Secretary of State. Bob Corker can have his opinions, but not his facts. But, it's President Trump. I mean, on any given day, he can tweet about a dozen different issues, sparking a dozen different pretty significant headlines.
But it's just because these tweets come so fast, so furious. He's picking fights with NBC now.
Yeah.
He's picking fights with Rex Tillerson, his Secretary of State. It seems like he's picking fights with everyone except Democrats.
Right now, yeah certainly. There was a time, but right now, you're right. I mean, and we saw that a lot in the summer, too. I think when people look back on that month-long August recess, when everybody was back in their districts or on vacation, if you added it all up, I think the president was much tougher on Republicans than Democrats. And, you hear a lot of grumbling about the president's tweets, but that's another factor to it of like, look, like you've got this amazing megaphone, you've got this soapbox. Why are you going after us? Like, use it to go after them. We can all try and work together. But, the president has certainly pitched himself as an independent from the mess of Washington. And he has said whoever can work with him, he's willing to work with them.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Iran deal, because we keep hearing Donald Trump wants to get out, but everyone in all of his generals who he said he would listen to want to stay in.
You get a sense that President Trump just doesn't like anything negotiated by his predecessor. And this is a very big part of it. He says this is an embarrassing deal. The U.S. got nothing. But you have his cabinet members, Secretary of Defense, his Secretary of State, saying Iran is in technical compliance and that this deal is in the U.S. national security interest. And the president saying the complete opposite. In some ways, I think what we're going to see is the president going out and perhaps not certifying this deal. So it allows him to say, I did something because I don't like this. But then it's up to Congress, like so many things. Then Congress has their say at it. They can decide whether or not to put sanctions back on Iran or new sanctions. And right now, there is not a big appetite for that. And that's where this is all going to come down. And it could be a pretty nasty standoff between the White House and the Republicans.
Just so we understand, he has to do something with it this week with
by
the
October
Iran
15th.
October
yeah,
15th.
By October 15th is the deadline. And he's had to do this every 90 days. So he's already done it twice, but he has not been happy about doing it. So after he recertified in July, it was like, okay, that's it. He is furious about this. And the deadline then was circled on the calendar calendar of October 15th. But, all international parties that were a part of this are essentially begging the president to not do this because there is no renegotiation. That's what the president says he wants. He wants another deal. He wants a better deal. Well, Iran has made it very clear it's this or nothing. And if it's nothing, there's a big concern from our allies of what Iran will go back to doing.
Karen Travers, ABC News correspondent at the White House. Karen,